Namaste. Welcome to the beginning of another Yamsog's ASMR video. Today we are continuing our read through the Bhagavad Gita. Specifically, we will start the 9th chapter today. Normally, I like to set the scene with some incense. However, I find that I often am holding back coughing since this is not a well-ventilated area. So instead I'll just start with a couple dings from this manjira. A traditional instrument among Vaishnavas. Anyway, please find yourself welcomed. Rest in a position that feels most relaxing for you, and I'm grateful that you're here. Without further ado, let's continue. So we read the 8th chapter last time, all about the imperishable supreme. The 9th chapter now is called The Royal Secret. Most of us wish to achieve some big goal in life, as advised by our well-meaning elders and friends. The self-help literature too focuses on techniques that can help the readers achieve their bigger picture goals in life. It's all good, except for one problem. These goals are all material in nature, meaning that they are temporary goals, achieving which can only provide the achiever with temporary joy. Our lives are very short when compared to the summation of all the time gone in the past and yet to come in the future. And that means, no matter how grand our goals may seem to us, they are effectively very small. In this chapter, Lord Krishna reveals the biggest secret about our actual goal in this material life, after achieving which nothing else remains to be achieved for us. And he also explains how we can achieve that divine goal. Read on to know more, as we shall. If I'm not mistaken, this is one of the most studied chapters in all of the Bhagavad Gita. People have written whole books just on this chapter, so you're in for a treat. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, "To you, who does not carp, I shall now impart this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be liberated from evil, from the miseries of this material existence." Bold statement. If we just fully understand this chapter, this might be all that you need in order to achieve realization. If I remember correctly, the book even opens with that verse from the first verse of the 9th chapter indeed. So important this book is to be prefaced by such a wonderful verse. So important this verse is too. Krishna continues, "This sovereign education, the sovereign secret, the supreme purifier, directly realizable through undertaking of one's righteous duties, practicing which one provides joy eternally." The ones not having faith in their eternal duty to strive for self-realization and liberation, O Parantapa, not attaining me, return to the material world on the path of death. I, this entire universe. All beings exist in me, but I, Krishna's all-powerful self, am not situated in them. Nor do, in reality, the created beings exist in me. Behold my divine opulence with which I maintain all beings. Myself, being the source of all beings, is not a part of these beings, as the Creator is always separate from the created. And I might add, as a little extra secret sauce to really make sure this chapter sinks in, when we listen to Krishna describe himself, on the one hand we can listen to it as if this great being is providing all the glories which we should revere him for. But remember that Krishna also represents a deep philosophical, spiritual concept, and so by talking in the first person, we are listening to the universe describe its ultimate reality directly to us. Understand that just as the mighty wind moving everywhere rests always in the sky, but is separate from the sky, similarly, all created beings are situated in me, but are separate from Krishna. All beings, O Kaunteya, at the end of the cosmic cycle, enter into my nature. At the beginning of the next cycle, I create them again. There's a cyclical cosmology happening of universes coming into being, but also on smaller time scales, solar systems, civilizations, and even a single human life could be described as any part of this cycle. These activities, however, O Dhananjaya, do not bind me. The one being neutrally situated, unattached to these activities. Under my supervision, this material nature produces everything moving and unmoving, beings and inanimate objects. For this reason, O Kaunteya, the world revolves in cycles of Brahmas, days and nights, of the Creator's day of God and night of God. That we talked about in the last chapter, and I mentioned was comparable to a day and night in Genesis of the Christian Bible, of, well, the Torah in the First Testament. It is said very early on that the world was created in 7 days and nights. Well, in the Hindu pantheon, a day of God is a very specific measure of time, which is much, much longer. It refers to the rise and fall of a sentient species in the universe. The ignorant fools deride me when I assume the human form, not knowing my supreme nature as the great Lord of all beings. Whenever the Supreme Lord, whenever the source of existence takes avatar, descends into a material form, or at least what seems like a material form, we never recognize them. Making another parallel to another religion, Christianity, for example, Jesus was definitely not seen and respected by his contemporaries, or at least not by the majority. He only had 12 disciples who fully understood his being at the time. So too, Krishna has many stories of people not recognizing the fact that he is a representative for the entirety of the universe. Amazing stuff. At the same time, there is a parallel with our being as ordinary humans. we are also, in some sense, manifestations of that source, the very same divinity that created the universe. We can find traces of those aspects within ourselves, and yet we often fail to recognize that too, in ourselves, but most importantly in others. We forget that the divine is in everyone around us. Of vain hopes of happiness, of vain misdirected actions, of vain material knowledge, devoid of sense, they verily become possessed by the delusive nature of devils and demons, of negative vrittis, thought forms, and subtle bodies that pass through. Always chanting my glories, striving with determination, bowing before me in adoration. They are always engaged in worshiping me with devotion. Sorry, I skipped a verse. But the great souls, O Bharata, taking shelter of my divine nature, engage in my devotion without deviation of mind, knowing me to be the imperishable source of all beings, always chanting my glories, striving with determination, bowing before me in adoration. They are always engaged in worshiping me with devotion. I was listening to a Buddhist monk, a very famous one, Thich Nhat Hanh, I'm sure many of you have heard of. He was saying that you can take refuge in anything. You can take refuge in a flower. You can take refuge in a tree. Why? Because inside a tree there is a whole universe. Not just in the microcosm, not just in the biome of little bugs and microbes, but because this tree is an expression of all the clouds in the sky, all of the rain that has come from them. It is an expression of the earth and all its soil. It's an expression of the sun and all its light. You can find the whole universe in a tree. In the same way, you can find Krishna within everything. You can take refuge at his feet everywhere you go. Chanting the glories of God is a funny concept for me to wrap my head around, because it sounds like it might be something that we should do, that there's some cosmic rule book in the heavens where God is noting whether we are chanting or not, and because we're following directions, then happiness is bestowed or not. But actually the chanting is the happiness itself. What it really means to chant the glories of God is to revel in the infinitude of creation, in the infinitude of that potential of the source, to really get lost in all of the aspects of this existence that are truly beautiful and heart-rending. These are some very important verses, and we can really dive into them. For example, always bowing before me. He says we can do that in front of everyone we meet because he sits as Paramatma, as the higher self within everyone's heart. And that we engage in devotion without deviation. This is important. If we always keep our mind on Krishna, we can always be happy because our mind is literally filled with the divine virtues that we are thinking about, if we are constantly thinking about them. I'll continue though. Others who engage in the sacrifice of knowledge, jnana yoga, also worship me as one, as diverse, as many, as the universal one facing all sides, i.e. as the one who encompasses all elements of the entire creation. I am the rite. I am the sacrifice. I am the oblation to the ancestors. I am the healing herb. I am the holy chant. I am also the clarified butter used in the sacrificial fire. I am the sacrificial fire. I am the oblation put into the fire. I love when Krishna is describing himself as things that we mistake for maybe relating to the divine, like the process of some rituals, like the chanting, like the fire. But Krishna is dismantling the duality entirely in this verse. Krishna is the act of attaining Krishna. It's hard to understand because whenever we are engaging in some pursuit, the destination is always different from the means of getting there. But in this almost Advaita, this non-dual perspective, Krishna is the means of enlightenment itself. And this is a big revelation, if you know what I'm saying. If you are striving for enlightenment, in some sense that is your enlightenment. If you are trying to become closer to God, that is God. We'll let Krishna continue to describe himself. I am the father of this entire universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire, the oldest ancestor. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the cosmic syllable, Om. I am the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajurvedas, the goal, the maintainer, the Lord, the witness, the abode, the refuge, the dearest friend, the origin, the annihilation, the foundation, the treasure house, and the imperishable seed. O Arjuna, I give heat, and I withhold, and pour down the rain. I am immortality, and also death. I am both the truth, the spirit, and the false, the physical body. The knowers of the three Vedas, the first revelations, and the drinkers of the Soma juice, the immortality-providing drink, purified from sin, worship me by making sacrifices, praying for an entry into heavens. Attaining thus the holy, heavenly planet of Indra, the king of heavenly demigods, they enjoy godly pleasures. Having enjoyed the vast heavenly planets, they, virtuous people, once the merits of their virtuous activities, good karma, are exhausted, return to the mortal world, earth. Thus they, seeking sense pleasures, abiding by the instructions given in the three Vedas, achieve only coming and going between the heavens and the earth. This is a colossal secret that's revealed here. We touched upon it in earlier chapters, that in the first revelations of humanity, it is described the process of attaining success, of attaining even heaven, the realm of godly beings. Krishna is dismantling all of that and saying there is something even higher. You can go to the realm of the gods by achieving good actions, by being free from sin. You can follow all of the rituals prescribed in scripture. But only doing this will not get you ultimate liberation, only a temporary abode in heaven. But there is no permanent heaven. But there is something permanent that you can attain. It just cannot be described as earth or heaven. Those who, contrary to the seekers of pleasure, meditating on me and none other, having no other goal, worship me, being ever attached to me, to them I supply what they lack in their devotion, thus making sure they reach Krishna, and preserve what they possess, their already gathered assets of devotion, thus preventing them from falling down in their spiritual endeavors. Even the devotees of other gods who worship them with faith worship me only, O Kaunteya, though following the wrong method of worshipping Krishna indirectly through the demigods. In other words, there is only Krishna. You can worship other forms, but secretly, those are all just different sides of Krishna, through whom you have not yet realized the ultimate being. I indeed am the ultimate enjoyer, and also the Lord of all sacrifices, but they, the devotees of the demigods, do not know me in essence, hence they fall down in their spiritual efforts, resulting in them returning to this mortal world. The devotees of the demigods go to the demigods. The devotees of the ancestors go to the ancestors. The devotees of the ghosts go to the ghosts. But my devotees come to me to stay with Krishna forever. Whoever offers me with devotion even a leaf, a flower, a fruit, water, the simplest of offerings, I accept that, if it is offered by a pure soul with devotion. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice, whatever you give in charity, whatever austerities you undertake, O Kaunteya, do that as an offering to me. Thus you will be liberated from the bondage of actions yielding auspicious and inauspicious results, with your mind steadfast by the yoga of renunciation. By renunciation, by unattachment to rewards of actions, being freed, you will come to me. I am impartial to all beings. To me, no one is detestable, and no one is dear, but those who worship me with devotion are in me, and I am also in them. Thus, they become one with Krishna. Even if a person of abominable conduct worships me, devoted to no one else, they should indeed be regarded as a sage, because they are rightly resolved. They soon become righteous and attain eternal peace. O Kaunteya, declare to all that my devotee never perishes. For, by taking shelter in me, O Partha, even they, who may be of a so-called sinful birth, women, irrespective of gender, merchants, irrespective of occupation, and labor-class people, irrespective of social status, can attain the supreme goal, Krishna's association. Now this is actually a beautiful verse, but it can often be misinterpreted, because we are calling women sinful, or people who are in lower class. I think the word sinful here is used in a way that has been misused over time. For example, the original word that we call sin has had a very different evolution over the last few hundred, maybe thousands of years, because it has been used to oppress people. And ironically, I think it's their own oppression that Krishna is acknowledging here, that in the turn of the Kali Yuga, which happens after the events of this book 5,000 years ago, it is almost prophesied that those in the lower class will be oppressed, and those of a certain gender, namely women, will also be oppressed. So Krishna is saying that even those who are oppressed in society can attain the supreme goal. I hope that clears any misconceptions. How much easier then it is for the righteous Brahmins, the knowers of God, or Brahman, and the devoted royal sages, having come to this temporary miserable world, worship me. Fixing your mind on me, become my devotee, surrender to me and bow down to me, absorbing yourself thus and accepting me as the supreme goal, you will surely come to me. It's very interesting, as I grew up in the West, without understanding, I would hear this and I go, why does God need this from us? You know, God is God. Surely he does not need anything from us. And as I became more spiritually mature, I understood that I was right. That God does not need us to surrender. It's that we have the need to almost relax into this belief. It's not a surrender in terms of giving up some fight, unless it's a fight against our own ego. It's actually an opportunity that we are afforded because it provides us with humility, surrendering to a greater source that we just meld into. And there's also a practicality of surrendering unto the divinity which is within your own self and within everyone else. It's not because God needs it, but because it secretly is a way for us to be happy. There is no greater purpose. It's really difficult to explain, especially to someone who might have had a traumatic upbringing in a religious context, someone who might have experienced dogma from another tradition. There's no expectation here, and this is kind of the secret. The connotation is this is how you can find ultimate peace. I hope that makes sense. In any case, it will make sense eventually. The author provides some beautiful commentary anyway. It is not difficult to understand why the Blessed Lord refers to the information revealed in this chapter as the sovereign education, or the sovereign secret, and the supreme purifier. This is the highest form of knowledge, and the only one that gives the life of a human its meaning. It is known to very few of us as being born in the Kali Yuga that I mentioned a second ago, the Dark Age. We are least inclined to know our true identities and purpose. This knowledge is so sanctifying that it can purify all of one's sins, and it fulfills the ultimate purpose of religion, which is to help human beings understand and achieve their divine objective. Krishna also confirms that he is everything, the source of everything, the preserver of everything, and also the annihilator of everything. And we are his children, and also I almost misread that. I was about to say, and we are his children, and also the annihilator of everything. Well, that Shiva aspect of annihilation is certainly in us, but no, I just reread the sentence before that. And we are his children in the sense that we come from him and possess very small fractions of his qualities. As Krishna declares, the purpose of human life is to get rid of the material world permanently and reach the divine world of Krishna, our true home, which is the only way to end our miseries and attain absolute happiness. Depending on the virtue of our collective actions in all our lives so far, we are assigned our next lives in suitable forms on suitable planets. But that does not imply that the so-called good deeds guarantee liberation. If our actions do not include knowledge of Krishna, faith in Krishna, devotion to Krishna, and meditation on Krishna, then we would only reach heavenly planets, at best, to enjoy the fruits of our good material work, after the exhaustion of which we would need to return to this world to continue our efforts of attaining permanent freedom lesser forms of God. We worship only Him, but not in the prescribed manner for this age. We might be able to reach heavenly planets this way, but not Krishna's supreme abode. Simply put, unwavering love for Krishna is what is needed for attaining liberation from this material world, and thereafter living with Him forever, the single true purpose of our lives. Thank you for listening. That was the end of Chapter 9, The Royal Secret. I'm not sure if I mentioned before, but there are many different ways in which one can interpret the Bhagavad Gita. This one is a bhakti, a devotion-driven way, but as I touch on in some of my supplementary commentaries to the commentary that the author gives, you can also interpret it in a very non-dual setting, in which we understand Krishna as being the center in all beings and as the Brahman, the ultimate reality pervading this material world. So there's also metaphors which we can unpack the symbolism of. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed. Hare Krishna. Namaste.